The warning, the ancient chamber, the great hall music of the Galactic Council floated in the darkness between stars, a massive station built by civilizations so old that their names had been forgotten. Inside the central chamber, representatives from 200 species gathered around a circular platform that glowed with soft blue light. They had come from every corner of the galaxy to discuss a matter that had troubled them for decades. The subject was humanity. Elder Morith stood at the center of the platform. His species, the Dreen, had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations over their 20,000-year history. His silver skin reflected the chamber lights as he raised his forearms for silence. The worried conversations died down. Immediately, everyone knew why they were here. We must address the situation with Earth. Morith began, his voice resonating through translation devices that hung in the air. For 200 years we have watched the humans. We have offered them friendship, technology, and a place among the stars. They have refused every offer. They prefer isolation, and perhaps we should be grateful for that. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The humans were strange creatures. When the council had first made contact with them, everyone had expected the usual response. Most young species were overwhelmed with joy at discovering they were not alone in the universe. They eagerly accepted the council's gifts and guidance, but humans had been different. They had listened politely to the council's offer, examined the technology that was presented to them, and then simply said, "No, thank you. The humans are not hostile," continued a representative from the species known for their diplomatic skills. "They have never attacked any of our ships. They simply want to be left alone." "Why is this problem?" Morith's expression grew serious. "Because they are not like other species. We have studied their history carefully. We have watched their old broadcasts and read their ancient texts. What we discovered troubles us deeply. Humans do not approach conflict the way we do. They do not fight to establish dominance or to gain territory. When humans go to war, they go to win. Completely and permanently. The chamber grew quiet. A holographic display appeared above the platform, showing images from Earth's history. Battlefields covered in smoke and fire. Cities reduced to rubble. Weapons that could destroy entire populations in seconds. "Look at their past," Morith said, gesturing to the images. "They have fought thousands of wars among themselves. Each time they fought, they invented new ways to destroy each other. They built machines that could fly through the air and drop fire on their enemies. They created weapons that could kill millions in an instant. They developed poisons that could wipe out entire armies. And most frightening of all, they learned from every conflict. Every war made them stronger, more efficient, more deadly." A young representative from the Corinth species stood up. His people had only recently joined the council. "Surely you exaggerate, Elder Morith. Many species have violent past. We all evolved from hunters and predators. The Corin ancestors were no different, but we grew beyond that violence. We learned cooperation and peace." "That is exactly my point," Morith replied. "You grew beyond violence because violence became inefficient. Your species reached a point where cooperation produced better results than conflict. This is true for almost every species in the council, but humans are different. They did not abandon violence because it stopped Working, they simply became very selective about when to use it. Another holographic image appeared showing a timeline of human development. After their last global war, humans went silent for a time. They focused on building and exploring. They reached their moon, then Mars, then the outer planets of their system. They built cities in space and stations around their sun. During all this time, we watched and waited for them to contact us. We thought they had finally matured beyond their violent past. Morith paused, his ancient eyes scanning the faces in the chamber. We were wrong. They were not becoming peaceful. They were preparing. Every ship they built had weapons hidden inside. Every colony they established could become a fortress. In hours, every human child learned combat training alongside mathematics and science. They were not building a civilization of peace. They were building a civilization ready for war. The chamber erupted in concerned voices. Representatives turned to each other, discussing what they had just heard. Some looked skeptical, others worried. One voice cut through the noise, loud and dismissive. This is ridiculous. Commander Zithra of the Krell Empire stepped forward onto the platform. The Krell were one of the most powerful military forces in the known galaxy. They had conquered 40 star systems and commanded a fleet of 10,000 warships. Zithrak himself was a veteran of 100 battles, his dark exoskeleton marked with scars that told stories of countless victories. I have listened to these warnings with growing frustration. Zithra announced, his voice full of confidence. You speak of humans as if they are some unstoppable force, but what are they really? Single species confined to one star system. They have no allies, no trade partners, no knowledge of galactic warfare. My youngest officers command more firepower than their entire civilization. Morith tried to interrupt, but Zithra continued. The Krell Empire has fought real wars against real powers. We have faced the Syndicate armadas and crushed them. We have broken the Hive networks and scattered them across empty space. And you want me to fear a species that still uses chemical rockets? Several other military representatives nodded in agreement. They had heard stories about dangerous species before, but those stories always turned out to be exaggerated. The galaxy was vast, but it followed certain rules. Technology took time to develop. Military power required resources and experience. A young species like humanity could not possibly pose a real threat. Commander Zithrak Morith said carefully, I understand your confidence. The Krell military is indeed formidable, but I strongly urge you to reconsider. Humans are not dangerous because of their technology. They are dangerous because of how they think. They do not see war as a tool for gaining advantage. They see it as a problem that must be solved completely. Zithrak laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Then perhaps someone should teach them that some problems cannot be solved. Perhaps someone should show them that the galaxy does not bend to the will of stubborn children who refuse to join the community of civilized worlds. A cold feeling spread through the chamber. The other representatives understood what Zithrak was suggesting. The Krell Empire was planning to force humanity into compliance. Please, Morith said, his voice urgent. Now do not do this. The Council has spent 2 centuries studying humanity. Every analysis, every simulation, every prediction comes to the same conclusion. If you attack them, they will not Surrender, they will not negotiate. They will respond in ways you cannot anticipate, and they will not stop until the threat is eliminated completely. Zithrak turned to face the elder. Directly, your species has grown soft. With age, Marth, you see threats everywhere because you have forgotten what real power looks like. The Krell Empire will demonstrate to these humans the cost of rejecting the Council's generous offer. We will strike one of their mining colonies on the edge of their system, a small lesson to show them they are not as isolated as they believe. If you do this, Marth said quietly, you will start something that cannot be stopped. Humans do not start wars, Commander, but they end them, and they end them their way. Zithrak dismissed the warning with a wave of his clawed hand. Let them try. The commander left the chamber, followed by his officers. The remaining representatives sat in uncomfortable silence. They had just witnessed the beginning of something terrible. Morith looked around at the worried faces and felt a deep sadness settle over him. Record this day, he said to the council historians. Mark it as the moment we failed to prevent disaster, and pray that humanity shows more mercy than we deserve. 3 days later, a Krello battle group entered human space and destroyed mining Station 7 near the orbit of Neptune. 1,500 human workers died in the attack. The Krell fleet then broadcast a message to Earth demanding immediate surrender and integration into the Galactic Council. The human response came 48 hours later. It was not a message, was not a threat, it was simply movement. Every human ship in the solar system went dark. Communication channels fell silent. The busy traffic between Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies stopped completely. The galaxy watched and waited. In the Krell fleet, Commander Zithrak smiled. He believed the humans were afraid. He believed they were preparing to surrender. He had no idea that humanity had just shifted into a mode they had not used in 200 years. They had gone to war, and when humans went to war, they did not fight to send messages or teach lessons. They fought to end threats permanently. The Krell Empire was about to learn this lesson the most brutal way possible. The silence from human space continued. In that silence, something was being prepared, something calculated, methodical, and absolutely ruthless. The Council's warning had been ignored. Now, the galaxy would see what happened when you drag humanity into a war they did not want. The human way, the waiting game. Commander Zithrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the relentless Dawn, and watched the empty darkness of human space with growing satisfaction. 5 days had passed since the destruction of Mining Station 7, and there had been no response from Earth, no threats, no counterattacks, no desperate pleas for mercy, just silence. They are afraid, announced Subcommander Rithik. Zithrak's second in command. Our intelligence shows that all human military vessels have retreated to their inner system. They are gathering around Earth and Mars, like frightened children hiding behind their parents. Zithrak nodded approvingly. This was exactly what he had expected. Humanity had finally understood their place in the galactic order. Soon they would send envoys begging for terms. The Krell Empire would accept their surrender, place military governors in their system, and integrate their resources into the Empire. It would be a clean victory, one that would demonstrate Krell's superiority to the entire Council. Maintain our position at the edge of their system, Zithrak ordered, "Let them come to us, let them understand that we control the terms of their surrender," but hours turned into days and still no human delegation arrived. The silence continued. Zithrak began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. He had fought many species and he knew the patterns of defeat. Usually there was communication, desperate attempts to negotiate, angry threats that masked fear or pleas for understanding. But from humanity there was nothing. The disappearances begin. On the 8th day after the attack, something changed. A Krello patrol ship on the outer edge of the battle group failed to report in for its scheduled communication. This was not unusual. Equipment malfunctioned, crew members made mistakes. Zithrak sent another ship to investigate. That ship also disappeared. Within 3 hours, 5 patrol vessels had vanished without sending any distress signals. They were simply there. One moment and gone the next. Zithrak ordered the entire fleet to pull back and form a defensive formation. He increased sensor sweeps to maximum range and put all crew on high alert. "What are we dealing with?" Rithik asked, staring at the tactical display where the missing ships had last been detected. "I do not know," Zithrak admitted, "but prepare all weapon systems. The humans are doing something." Over the next 2 days, the disappearances continued, not just ships but now sensor buoys, communication relays, and automated defense platforms. Anything the Krello deployed beyond their tight defensive formation simply ceased to exist. There were no explosions, no debris fields, no energy signatures. Equipment and vessels were there, and then they were not. The Krello fleet, which had numbered 200 warships when it entered human space, was now down to 173. Zithrak had lost 27 vessels without seeing the enemy even once. "This is impossible," Rithik said, his voice tight with frustration. "Our sensors can detect a ship from 1,000,000 km away. How are they getting so close without being seen?" Zithrak did not answer. He was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. The Council's warnings echoed in his memory. Humans do not fight like other species. They do not see war as a tool. They see it as a problem to be solved. The pattern emerges. It was a young sensor officer named Kethel who first noticed the pattern. She had been studying the disappearances, trying to find any connection between the lost ships. What she discovered made her blood run cold. "Commander," she reported, her voice shaking slightly, "I have analyzed the missing vessels. They were not random targets. Every ship we lost was carrying specific equipment or crew with specialized knowledge." Zithra moved to her station. "Explain." Cathro brought up a list on her screen. "The first ships we lost were carrying our most advanced sensor arrays. Then we lost ships with communication specialists aboard. Then ships carrying our weapons engineers. Then ships with navigation experts." "Sir, they are not attacking us randomly. They are learning from us. They are taking our technology and our people to study." The realization hit Zithra like a physical blow. The humans were not fighting back. They were doing something far more methodical. They were dissecting the Krell fleet piece by piece, learning everything about Krell technology, tactics, and capabilities. Every ship they took gave them more information. Every system they captured taught them more about their enemy. "How long have they been watching us?" Zithrak whispered. Another officer spoke up from the scanning station. Sir, I am detecting unusual readings throughout the area, very faint energy signatures. Almost impossible to detect. They are all around us. They have been there for days. Show me, Zirak demanded. The tactical display updated, showing dozens of tiny marks surrounding the Krell fleet. They were so small and produced such minimal energy that the sensors had dismissed them as background noise, but when highlighted together, they formed a perfect sphere around the entire battle group. What are those? Rick asked. Observation drones, Cathil answered. Thousands of them. They are watching everything we do, every movement, every communication, every system activation. They have been studying us since we entered their space. Zithrak felt cold realization spreading through his body. The humans had not been hiding in fear. They had been watching and learning. While he had waited for their surrender, they had been taking his fleet apart, analyzing it, understanding it completely. The Krell Empire's greatest military commander had been reduced to a specimen in a laboratory, and he had not even known it. Prepare the fleet for immediate retreat, Zithrak ordered. We are leaving human space now, but it was already too late. The response, every system on the relentless dawn went dark. Simultaneously, lights, engines, weapons, sensors, everything shut down. In an instant, through the windows, Zithrak could see the same thing happening throughout the entire fleet. 200 warships, the pride of the Krell Empire, floating dead in space. Emergency power kicked in after a few seconds, but it was only enough for basic life support and communication. Zithrak grabbed the command console and demanded a report. All primary systems are offline, his chief engineer reported, panic clear in his voice. It is not damaged, sir. It is like something reached into our computers and turned everything off. I cannot override it. I cannot even access the main systems. Communication channel activated on its own. A human face appeared on the main screen. It was a woman, perhaps middle-aged by human standards, with dark hair and eyes that showed no emotion whatsoever. Commander Zithrak of the Krell Empire, she said in perfect Krell language. I am Admiral Chin of the Earth Defense Coalition. You destroyed one of our stations and killed 1,500 of our people. You did this to teach us a lesson about our place in the galaxy. We have learned that lesson. Now we will teach you one in return. Zithrak tried to respond, but his communication system would not accept input. He could only watch and listen. For the past 8 days, we have been studying your fleet. Admiral Chin continued. We have analyzed your technology, your tactics, and your capabilities. We have identified every weakness in your systems. We have mapped every power conduit, every computer pathway, every structural vulnerability in your ships. We now understand the Krell Empire better than you understand yourselves. The display changed to show a detailed schematic of the relentless dawn. It showed systems that even Zithrak did not know existed, hidden pathways and backup systems that were classified at the highest levels. The humans had completely infiltrated every ship in the fleet. You have 2 choices, Admiral Chin said. First choice, you can surrender immediately and unconditionally. Your ships will be escorted out of our system. You will return to Krell space, and you will never enter human territory again. You will inform the Galactic Council that Humanity is not to be disturbed ever. She paused, and for the first time, Zithrak saw something in her eyes. Was not anger, was not hatred, it was cold calculation. The look of someone who had already decided on a course of action and was simply following through. Second choice, you can refuse. If you refuse, we will begin systematically dismantling the Krell Empire, not quickly, not in open battle, but slowly and methodically. We will infiltrate your systems, we will disable your ships, we will cut your communication lines, we will destroy your infrastructure piece by piece until your empire collapses. From within, we have already identified every Kreml military installation. Within 50 light years, we know where your shipyards are, where your command centers are located, where your leaders live. We can reach all of them whenever we choose. The screen split to show multiple images: Krell military bases, government buildings, fleet assembly yards, all with detailed analysis of their defenses and vulnerabilities. The humans had been preparing for this for far longer than 8 days. They had been mapping Krell space for months, maybe years, waiting for a reason to act. You wanted to teach us about our place in the galaxy, Admiral Chin said. Let me teach you about humanity's place. We do not start wars, Commander. We do not seek conflict or conquest. We simply want to be left alone. But when someone forces war upon us, we do not fight to win battles. We fight to eliminate the threat completely and permanently. We fight to ensure that the enemy never has the capacity or the will to threaten us. Again, she leaned forward slightly. We studied your history, Commander Zithrak. The Krell Empire has fought many wars. You have won most of them, but you have never fought a species like us. You fight for glory and territory. We fight for survival, and when humans fight for survival, we do not stop until the threat is gone. The silence that followed was absolute. Every Krell officer on the bridge understood what they were hearing. This was not a threat, it was a statement of fact. The humans had already won. The question was only how much they would take before they were satisfied. You have 1 hour to decide, Admiral Chin said. Surrender and leave, or refuse and be destroyed. Choose wisely, Commander. This is the only offer you will receive. The screen went dark. The Krell fleet floated in space, powerless and vulnerable, waiting for their commander to make the most important decision of his life. The lesson learned. Zithra looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They were warriors trained for combat and victory, but they were not prepared for this. No one in the Krell Empire had ever faced an enemy like humanity. Send the surrender, Zithra said quietly. Broadcasted on all channels. We accept their terms. Within minutes, human ships appeared throughout the fleet. They were smaller than Krell vessels, but moved with precision and purpose. They attached control devices to each disabled warship and began the process of escorting the fleet out of human space. It took 3 days for the entire battle group to reach the edge of the system. During that time, not a single human spoke to them, not a single message was sent. The humans simply moved them out like removing garbage. When the Krell fleet finally crossed into neutral space and their systems were restored, Zithra immediately set course for Council space. He had a message to deliver. The Galactic Council assembled to hear his report. Representatives from 200 species watched as Commander Zithrak stood before them. No longer confident and proud, but humbled and shaken, Elder Morith was. Right, Zithrax said simply. I did not listen to the warnings. I believed that military power was enough. I was wrong. The humans are not dangerous because of their technology or their weapons. They are dangerous because they understand war in a way that we do not. They do not fight to gain advantage. They fight to end threats, and they are very, very good at it. He paused and looked directly at Morith. I started a war with humanity. They ended it in 8 days without firing a single shot. They took my fleet apart like a puzzle, learned everything about us, and gave us a choice between surrender and complete destruction. They were not emotional. They were not cruel. They were efficient. Zithrax's voice grew stronger. I came here to tell you all what I learned. Update your records. Change your warnings. Make sure every species in the galaxy understands one simple truth. Never drag humanity into a war, because they do not fight wars. They solve problems, and if you become their problem, they will solve you permanently. The council sat in silence as Zithrax's words echoed through the chamber. Elder Morith stood slowly and bowed his head toward the Krello. Commander, thank you for your honesty. Morith said, your lesson will save lives. From this day forward, the council's official policy is clear. Humanity is to be left alone. They have chosen isolation, and we will respect that choice. Any species that violates human space does so without council protection or support. The vote was unanimous. 200 species agreed instantly. The records were updated with new warnings more serious than before, and across the galaxy, a new understanding spread. There was a species called humanity that lived in a single star system. They wanted nothing from the galaxy except to be left in peace. And if you were foolish enough to disturb that peace, you would learn a lesson you would never forget. Humans did not start wars, but they ended them, and they ended them their way. The end.